Patty, thanks so much. Every Thursday here on News 9 at 9, we go in depth with the Oklahoma City Police Chief Wade Gourley.
This week, we're talking about a new bill that would put more school resource officers into schools. Here's Lisa Monahan.
The ongoing push for increased school security has lawmakers rethinking how we protect students and educators while on campus. Good morning, I'm Lisa Monahan with Oklahoma City Police Chief Wade Gourley. And Chief, right now there is a bill being considered. It aims to give school districts more options when it comes to filling those school resource positions. So what this would do, it would allow schools to hire retired law enforcement or even CLEAT certified security guards to fill those positions. Do you see any pros or cons in that scenario?
So a little bit of both. I mean, obviously, in a school, you want an armed person in there that's trained to deal with any threats that come in there. And I think it also acts as a deterrent. But I don't know how much consultation was done with law enforcement and with CLEAT on how you make that happen. If you're going to, for example, a retiree, well, once I retire from the Oklahoma City Police Department, I no longer have a CLEAT certification because I have to be employed by a police department or by an agency. So I don't know how that person as a retiree would get the type of training that they need. For example, the state required active shooter training called laser that we all have to go through now and is a requirement. So I think things like that need to be worked out and figure out what exactly they're trying to do out of the bill.
And I think in theory, some of this is probably, well, they've had the training and they know how to spot potential problems. Obviously, ongoing training would be important, but what about the communication issue?
So I think the biggest thing, we have schools within the Oklahoma City limits that employ private security and retired officers. And by doing that, we make sure that we communicate with those schools regularly and we know who those officers are that are in there. Some of those schools even have access to our radio system so that we can communicate. Because you have to think, when somebody inside that school, if they're in Oklahoma City limits, calls 911, it's coming to our dispatch center. So if we don't have a way to communicate and know that they have an armed security person in that school, that could be very dangerous for the responding officers and for that armed individual when we're going in trying to address that threat.
Absolutely. Communication is so important in everything we do. Let's take a closer look now at how Oklahoma City Police handles its school security. So, Chief, you have 26 school resource officers, 18 dedicated to Oklahoma City Public Schools for its high school and middle schools. And then I know you recently obtained more public schools and their security. I believe you have 8 officers there, and they are working in the high school and 3 middle schools in that particular situation. Do you feel like that's an adequate staffing level to police so many schools? I
do, especially you know, when you factor in the fact that those rovers, as we call them, they're available to go in and assist at any of the junior highs or the high school, but then they're also there at those elementary schools as well. And you just want them there as a deterrent is the biggest thing, but we also want them there to address any issues that come along. And the expansion into more schools had probably needed to be done for a long time, but it just got to a point. They've grown so much and they have such a footprint in South Oklahoma City. As a matter of fact, I wasn't aware of it till we started looking at doing this, that Westmore High School is the largest school in the Oklahoma City limits as far as the population of kids in that school.
That's interesting, and you sort of touched on the rover officer, so I want to dive into that a bit more because when it comes to the Metro's youngest students, you have 2 school resource officers that sort of rove between 13 elementary schools. How do you keep kids safe if you're not there every day?
So the biggest thing is with those elementary schools is they're hardened. You can't just go walk into an elementary school. They have very good security systems in place to prevent that from happening. And the key is the deterrent and not knowing exactly when those officers are going to be there, but they show up there enough just to have that presence. That's what you want. They also, those rovers have good communication, good relationships with the administrators of those elementary schools. And so they can quickly access an officer to tell them about a suspicious vehicle or something like that that they want checked out, and we can go over and do that. Also, starting, I believe it was about 2 years ago, we instructed all of our officers, if you're going to be writing a report or, you know, on a lunch break or something like that, and you brought your lunch, do that at one of these elementary schools. And so have a presence there that's in your district. So we have patrol officers that are also patrolling in those areas, and they'll have a presence there just, again, those meal breaks and other things, and they get to know the administrators and the kids in the school as well.
And sometimes just being parked there can be just the deterrent that's needed.
Absolutely, that's what we want.
Thank you so much for the insight this morning, Chief. We appreciate it. If you have a question for the Chief about this topic or any other issue facing our community, you can send an email to chatwiththechief@griffin.news, and we'll get you some answers.